Hey there, welcome back to another quick rant. Uh, this one is just something that's been stewing in my brain for a little bit. I've done countless videos about this topics, remakes, so forth and so on, and reboots. Just did a video about Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters reboot. And this little rant that I'm going to do right here does tie into the Ghostbusters reboot. I just wanted to do a quick video getting my thoughts out about what the real problem is with remakes and reboots. What's the issue? What's the problem? Remakes and reboots. Now, I personally feel, this is my personal opinion, it's not the remakes or the reboots themselves that are the problem. It's not the idea of remaking or rebooting a franchise that's the core of the problem here. The core of the problem for me personally, from my point of view, is that there's too many half-assed remakes and reboots being made. And what do I mean by that? There's too many lazy attempts at a remake and or a reboot. For instance, take the horror genre. Let's look at the Carrie remake. A lazy remake because it's pretty much the exact same film as Brian De Palma's movie with Sissy Spacek, or even the exact same movie as the 2000 TV movie with Angela Bettis, and all it does is just throw in some new effects, a little bit of extra, maybe a bit of extra gore, and that's maybe a couple extra scenes, and that's it. Or take the Poltergeist remake. It just jumbled sequences up. It just jumbled up the order of some of the sequences from the original film, and just literally just gave you the same movie for the most part as the 1982 film Poltergeist. Right down to the same lines of dialogue, and right down to almost the exact same climax. Just a little bit of some things changed up. Like my friend Matt said in comments in his rant on the film, it's a Xerox. That's the problem. It's the Xeroxing, the copying, and copy and pasting of the original films with these remakes and reboots. That's the reason why these remakes and reboots suck. It's the reason why they're terrible. That's the reason why they're so awful. The reason why they're so bad you want to rip your eyes out and then shove it up your ass so they can see something that actually looks better. Because you'd rather see the inside of your own asshole than watch these awful remakes or these awful reboots. That's the problem. That's the main problem here. And it doesn't seem like it's changing. So that's the thing. I don't really have any hope for any remake or reboot that's going, except maybe, for example, like 21 Jump Street, for instance. I guess you could consider that sort of a remake, but that's more of an adaptation of a TV show. But it's not necessarily, I mean, loosely a remake, but not really. The best remakes nowadays come from independent companies, where you have the Maniac remake, which is produced by Alexandre Aja. Like I actually like that movie. That surprised me. But for the most part, if it's a major studio film, the remake's gonna for the most part more than likely going to suck a bag of dicks. Mainly because they're not making it for the right reasons. They're making it A, just for the money, B, they're not being creative with it. They're not, and if they are, like the RoboCop remake, they just completely miss the entire point of the original film. So they either don't do enough when it comes to the remake or the reboot. They don't do enough to separate themselves from the original movie. They just give you the same thing pretty much, with just a few little extra things, upgrade it to this generation, and throw in some little homages to the original film, which really, excuse me, for the most part, is just remaking scenes from the original movie, like the Omen remake, which was just the 1976 film. It was just the entire Omen film, just with new actors and a new director and just maybe a couple new scenes and a new take and they just change a few little things and expect to call it a day. Like instead of Damien riding the tricycle and knocking his mom off balcony. It's he's riding a razor scooter. Just that kind of stupid shit. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to this laziness, this half-assedness that goes on with when Hollywood decides to remake or reboot a franchise. So that's what we're getting with the new Ghostbusters film. With everything that I've been hearing about it, it just seems like a lazy reboot where it's just let's just gender flip these characters, and then all the way down to even Chris Hemsworth is pretty much playing a gender flipped version of Janine. So, and then we'll throw in all these cameos, which shows once again that the laziness that Hollywood is dealing with, where it's just, well, if we throw in a bunch of cameos from the original cast, then it'll make up for whatever problems that this film might have. And no, that's not the case. That's why I will not be giving my money to that movie at all. Not doing it. So, and then the recent news, they're thinking about rebooting the Men in Black franchise. They're going to reboot all this other stuff. They're just not doing it for the right reasons. The main reason is money. The Maniac remake wasn't made for money. That was made for an artistic vision. John Carpenter's The Thing was not going to be a moneymaker. I wish it made more money than it did, but it was a very, I don't know if I could want to use this word, but it kind of was a dangerous film. It was a very out there concept. This is a movie that really decided, fuck it, I'm going all out with this concept. And that was not something that even in 1982, even in 1982, that's pretty shocking. Nowadays, it's still pretty shocking in comparison to a lot of films, except for films like Serbian film or whatever, and so forth, or The Green Inferno. But back in 1982, that was a really shocking, dangerous undertaking of a film. That was a huge risk that John Carpenter took, and it didn't pay off originally. So they're with remakes. They used to take risks. With David Cronenberg's The Fly, it was a huge risk to take a '50s movie and turn it into a gory, bloody body mutation film. I mean, that was a pretty big risk at the time. Same thing goes for the 1988 remake of The Blob. When we're talking about remakes, when we talk about good remakes, for what a lot of people consider to be the best remakes of all time, what they have in common is they took risks. They all took risks. They all weren't just half-assed. They had passion behind the project. They took risks and completely went out all out. No holds barred. See, that's what made that's part of the reason why those remakes are so well remembered and they're so fondly appreciated nowadays, is because of the fact that they were willing to make an effort to do something fresh, to do something unique, to not serve us the same reheated leftovers. They actually went all out, used all of their energy and all of their power to make something good, to make something different, to make something their own, to make this '50s sci-fi movie or this B movie into their own, into something that is completely different, that stands on its own. And that's why a lot of those great remakes, Hills of Eyes remake by Alexander Aja, John Carpenter's The Thing, The Blob, 1988, The Fly, 1986, all those other remakes, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, the reason why those films are work so well back then and still continue to get a fan base today, it was because they took risks. Because they didn't take the easy way out. And they weren't necessarily just doing it just to make money. There was actual genuine passion behind the camera to remake those films. What we got nowadays is more similar to what Gus Van Sant did with Psycho, where he just did a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho in color. And just makes the idea of a remake completely and utterly pointless, when you could just watch the original movie anyway, instead of just watching the remake, which just gives you the same story that you already saw and heard before. So that's the problem that I have. That's the main issue, in my opinion, that that is inherently that inherently belongs to remakes and reboots, is the fact that they don't take risks. If they do try to do something different, they stray too far away from the material and completely miss the whole point of the film, like RoboCop. You take you take away the idea, the core concept of RoboCop, of Murphy not being able to be with his family, and you ruin the film. You ruin the whole story because the remake he's just a super cop in a super suit and he gets to be with his family. And it just completely misses the entire point. Or you don't even try, like the Poltergeist remake or the Carrie remake, or probably the upcoming Nightmare on Elm Street second remake, or because they're thinking about remaking Dream Warriors. Which I'm like, just leave it alone. It's great on its. Why are we doing this? And that's another question. Why? Why are we doing this? Because if we look at this, why why are so many of these studios gung ho about remaking everything? Remaking Total Recall, remaking Fright Night, remaking all these different movies, maybe even doing Jaws and Back to the Future. Is it really because they're trying to give the new generation a film? Is that really what they're trying to do? Is that I've heard that they're trying to update the material and give it so a new generation can appreciate it. Does a new generation really have to have a film have these characters and these situations and these stories just thrown into present day for them to appreciate it? I don't think they do. Why do you think Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and all of these older films like The Goonies, The Monster Squad, and Predator, and and Alien and Aliens, Die Hard, and RoboCop, the original 1987 film, why do you think these films continue to get new audiences and new fans to this day, old and young? Because they hold up on their own. They don't have to, just because they're older films doesn't mean that these younger kids can't enjoy them, that they can't relate to them, that they can't be as enthusiastic about them as somebody who saw them back when they were first released. So this concept of there being Ghostbusters is getting rebooted for a new generation, just let it happen, is I just think is asinine because they can go in and discover the original film anytime they want to. They don't have to see a remake or a reboot of Ghostbusters or RoboCop or Terminator or Die Hard or Rambo or Rocky or anything in order to honestly be able to appreciate the original film. They don't have to do that. They can seek out the original film, they can check it out, see for themselves, and then if they like it, cool. If they don't, that's fine too. But they don't. There's no need for a new, updated, modern day take on Back to the Future. There's no need for it. There's no need for these remakes. There's no need for these reboots. So that's the problem. The only thing the driving force behind these remakes and reboots, in my opinion, nowadays, is money. It's the almighty dollar. Hollywood's theme song should just be the Million Dollar Man theme song. Money, 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 money. Dun, 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 dun. Everybody's got a prize. That's really what it should be. That's their theme song. They're remaking The Ring again. Again, they're remaking The Ring. Or they're remaking The Grudge. Or they're doing a prequel to The Ring. It's just it's just the same stories, folks, that you've seen before. I don't know why we want to see them again. And the box office totals show that we really normally don't. Nightmare on Elm Street remake did well the first opening weekend, but fell off a cliff throughout the rest of the weekend, throughout the rest of the months afterwards. I don't know about you, but I want new horror icons. I don't want to see the same horror icons: Jason, Michael, Freddy, and Chucky, and all of these, Pinhead and the Tall Man. I don't want to see all the same horror icons over and over again for the rest of the end of time, or rest of time. I don't want to see that. I want to see new horror icons. And also, what this oversaturation of remakes and reboots is doing is cheapening and the original films. It's making them not as impactful as they really honestly should be, because now you have a half-assed lazy product that's associated with a great film, like John Carpenter's The Thing. You have the Thing prequel, which is called The Thing, which is associated with John Carpenter's The Thing. So you can't just call John Carpenter's, you can't call it The Thing anymore because there's the 2011 movie. So now we're going to have the problem with the Ghostbusters with the female cast. It'll be like, oh, Ghostbusters. Oh, what about the other Ghostbusters? And it's just it, it it's just one of those things that it just annoys me. It aggravates me that I have to do this now. That the reason why is because there's too many of these remakes and reboots, because they're just being made for money and just a quick buck. Laziness. It's just complete laziness. Shit. Hollywood just like, all right, write a remake script. Shit. Update it to the new generation. Throw in some iPhones and throw in some other stuff and switch around some of the scripts. Keep the same script, keep the same concept, keep the same idea. Don't put your own spin on it, and just throw in some new cast members and some new special effects and call it a day. That's just lazy. It's what it is. It's fucking laziness. And we should not be supporting that, because the other remakes back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, there were not as many remakes as there are nowadays. The past decade alone has more remakes than there were in the entire decade in the 1980s. That's the problem. There's too many of these remakes, and there's too many of them that are lazy, that are uninspired, that aren't made for the right reasons. But that's just my personal opinion. I I would be perfectly okay if they stopped making reboots or remakes for a little while. Just take a break, because that's what made the remakes like The Thing and The Fly and The Blob in the 80s, the Trinity, which a lot of people point to as three of the best remakes of all time. What made them so great was because that wasn't a common thing. There wasn't a remake coming out every year. I mean, you had 1986, 1988, The Thing came out in 1982, The Fly came out in 86, and The Blob came out in 88. This wasn't a common occurrence. There were a few remakes of older films, like, for example, Scarface is actually a remake. You had stuff like Cape Fear, which I like, which is a Martin Scorsese film. So you had remakes, but they weren't as common as they are nowadays. And that's the thing. It's just become a crutch that Hollywood can rely upon to just, we need to put a movie in for a certain release date, remake this movie, and just release it, and just call it a day. Or reboot this franchise that's already successful, because we don't need to be unique. We don't need to really put a lot of effort into this. We can just be lazy and print money. That's the problem. That's the problem with remakes and reboots, is the laziness, is the half-assedness, and the inability to take risks, which is what made a lot of these great remakes so great in the first place. Anyway, I really don't know what to say about this topic, except thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. See ya.